Hey, it's Friday. We made it. So glad you're with us here on THV 11 News at noon. I'm Michael Aaron, meteorologist Nathan Scott, over in the Weather Center on this very, very cold Friday. Nathan, is it going to warm up in time for the weekend?
Good afternoon, Michael. It was a frigid start to our Friday, the coldest numbers that we have seen for the month of January since 2018. Look at these numbers we woke up to. Into the teens across most of central Arkansas. 10 degrees in Clinton, single digits in Fayetteville, Harrison, Mountain Home, even down into South Arkansas. You start off the day on the chilly side into the low 20s. We have warmed up, not much at all. Upper 20s to low 30s. Pretty much everybody's still below the freezing mark, and we still had that breeze out there, so that adds a bite to the air, and this is what you want to prepare for, especially if you're in the shade. It feels like 23 right now in Little Rock. It feels like 17 in Stuttgart. Highs today, they will climb above the freezing mark, topping out into the mid to upper 30s, maybe some low 40s down to the south. But if you're going to be out and about this evening, bundle up, because as soon as the sun goes below the horizon, down the temperatures go into the 20s. Now, we do have some warmer air moving in going to the weekend. I'll let you know how warm it's going to get in our next chance of rain coming up.
The city of Little Rock is working to give people a way to stay warm today. Until 5 o'clock this evening, the Parks and Recreation community centers across the city are open for anyone who needs to escape the freezing temperatures. You can see those locations right there on your screen. The Salvation Army also has their dining room on West Markham open. Speaking of warm places to stay, the Compassion Center also stepping in to help people this week and all the time, really. They could use your help. It's the only overnight shelter for the homeless in Little Rock, and it is in need of things to accommodate visitors, from food to money to volunteers, and especially warm clothes.
Blankets, hats, gloves, whatever people's got out there they're not using, they could check that closet, and they got a couple coats in there they're not wearing. They could bring them down because people down here could use them.
If you'd like to help, you can call the Compassion Center. Just visit the building on Roosevelt Road to drop off those in-kind donations. More records set on the COVID-19 front in Arkansas. Let's take a look at the latest numbers. 11,160 new cases reported by the Department of Health on Thursday. That marked the 6th time we've had at least 10,000 cases over the course of the pandemic, with each of those times coming since last Wednesday. Active cases have never been higher in the state, sitting at more than 97,000 this afternoon. The number of COVID-related hospitalizations in Arkansas breaks yet another record as well. 1,640 people battling COVID in hospitals. That's up 40 from our previous record set just on Wednesday, one day before. The governor is set to give his weekly COVID briefing at 1:30 today, so less than 90 minutes away now. You can watch that live on THV11.com and on our YouTube page. Omicron continues its rapid spread across America, especially impacting the unvaccinated in all age groups. Michael George has the latest.
Children under 5 may soon be eligible to receive the COVID vaccine. Dr. Anthony Fauci says that could happen as soon as next month.
Have zero protection against the virus, so do become a little bit more sick than what we saw previously.
This comes as more than 900 children a day are being admitted to hospitals with COVID-19.
We have young children all the way down to 3 months of age in the hospital without any pre-existing condition.
While the youngest Americans are struggling with Omicron, older Americans are faring much better as long as they're vaccinated and boosted.
New numbers from the CDC show unvaccinated Americans aged 50 to 64 are 44 times more likely to end up in the hospital than their counterparts who have the booster.
The majority of patients who are getting admitted are high-risk patients who are unvaccinated or who are elderly, who have comorbidities like cancer, liver, heart failure, underlying respiratory issues, or diabetes.
There is some good news. In areas where the Omicron wave first hit, infection rates are coming down. New York Governor Kathy Hochul tweeted the state's COVID positivity rate is under 10% for the first time in a month. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
There's a new warning out today regarding fake masks. The CDC warns that 60% of high-quality masks aren't the real deal. So how will you know if the ones you're buying are legit? Here's what you need to know. Project N95 is helping cut through the confusion. The nonprofit offers advice to consumers on navigating their own mask purchases. There are 2 main face masks on the market today, N95 and KN95. Health officials say because the Omicron variant is so transmissible, it's time to upgrade your cloth mask to a high filtration mask. N95 masks are made in America and are approved and regulated by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, also known as NIOSH. A real N95 will have that NIOSH written on it, and another indicator it's real. The mask will have head straps, not ear loops like so many of us are used to. KN95 masks are manufactured in China and follow their government standards. They're also the most counterfeited online, but there's a great way to check if it's legit.
You have to look on the side of the mask. It should say GB 2626-2019 or GB 2626-2006. Do you see that anywhere on the front on either side of the mask?
One more thing to look for, experts say if a product online has typos, bad grammar, or specifically claims to be legitimate in the listing, it's probably fake. A word of advice for those of you who may be opening a new tab to shop for better masks, make sure you're buying from a tested source. Project N95 sells masks from vetted distributors, and if you're shopping on Amazon, make sure you're shopping from a trusted maker like 3M or Kimberly-Clark rather than third-party vendors. I want to switch gears and bring you a THV 11 update. A Pulaski County captain and 3 deputies are back on the job this afternoon after being placed on administrative leave after the death of 30-year-old Terrence Caffey. As you might remember, Caffey died in police custody last month after an alleged fight at the movie tavern on Bass Pro Parkway. Captain Mark Swaggerty, along with deputies Ryan Crancer, Antonio Swigert, and Ricky Wheeler, have returned to work. Swaggerty's work is restricted to, quote, non-law enforcement duties right now. So let's recap what we know about the December 10th incident. Terrence Caffey allegedly began fighting employees at the movie tavern. A sheriff's office report says that's when an off-duty deputy who was working security at the theater and Caffey got into some type of struggle. Caffey then went into, quote, medical distress. Officers with the Little Rock Police Department were called to assist with the arrest at some point, but their level of involvement is not known right now. The specific deputy who was involved has not been identified. We want to note just because those deputies and the captain are back on the job today does not mean the investigation is over. We'll continue to bring you updates on this story on air and on THV11.com. In 2021, Little Rock police tallied 64 homicides. That is 9 more than the previous year. While homicides went up, a new report from the department shows that the rate at which those cases are solved dropped. The department's homicide clearance rate for 2020 was just under 62%, which is around the national average. Last year, 2021, that number dipped to below 50%. Jacqueline Tate and her family are one of those still waiting on answers. Tate lost her daughter and niece in a double homicide a year ago.
I talked to the detective the other day, and he said they give it to another division so they can look at it. But I mean, it's a never-ending cycle because it feels like you relive that day every day with no answers. Then it just goes on and on. It just seemed like it never ends.
Yeah, it's worth noting the department says the 2021 clearance rate won't be entirely accurate for the next 5 months or so, pending future arrests and convictions. The department also notes that in some cases they may know who was involved in a homicide, but it's a matter of proving it. If you have any information about any open case, you're asked to call LRPD. Anyone who calls can remain anonymous. There are a number of new details out about the investigation of the events surrounding the 2020 election, and the Select Committee investigating January 6th is asking Ivanka Trump to tell what she saw and heard in the White House before, during, and after the assault on the Capitol. Scott McFarland reports from Capitol Hill.
In a letter to the former first daughter, the January 6th committee says it wants to talk, especially about a phone call she heard. The panel wants to know more about the testimony to the committee involving Mr. Trump's call to Mike Pence from the Oval Office the morning before the U.S. Capitol attack, urging him to block certification of President Biden's victory.
She has information that would help us get a clearer picture, as well as information the former president may have received from his own legal staff that what was being proposed was unconstitutional.
In its letter, the committee says it's learned some White House aides sought Ivanka Trump's intervention to get her father to address the lawlessness and violence.
We love you. You're very special.
The committee says it also wants to know about outtakes of Donald Trump's January 6th video message to rioters, in which the committee says it has information suggesting he did not ask them to leave. And the letter says some White House aides have told the committee Trump did wish to go to the Capitol with the crowd that day.
I believe it was the biggest crowd I've ever spoken to. It was massive. I'm not talking about the people that walked down to the Capitol. I'm talking about the people that we were watching.
At the rally.
But I felt that was going to happen at the rally, or whatever you want to call it, at the people listening to the speeches, for a lot of different people.
A spokesperson for Ivanka Trump did not address whether she'd comply, writing, as she publicly stated that day at 3:15 p.m., any security breach or disrespect to our law enforcement is unacceptable. The committee's request comes the same day Atlanta's top prosecutor requested a special grand jury to help investigate whether the former president interfered with Georgia's 2020 election results. The former president has been under scrutiny for his post-election call to the Secretary of State, during which he made this request.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes.
In a statement, the former president says that phone call to Georgia was perfect. And he says the special grand jury should instead be investigating what he falsely claims was large-scale voter fraud that took place in Georgia. In the meantime, a member of the House Select January 6th committee tells me they need time to go through a potential load of records released from the White House by the National Archives now that they've been cleared to do so by the Supreme Court. Scott McFarland, CBS News, Washington.